It is the High School Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score and 107thescore.com. Yep, check that, doubletsportsnetwork.com. I'll get that right one day. Also 100.7 The Score mobile app brought to you by Happy State Bank. Clint Scott in for Randy Rosetta. And we turn the page to the Plainsmen Fan Zone as we are sticking with the theme of boys basketball. And we have head coach Josh Davis. Coach, good to see you again. Thanks for coming in. And we got quite a bit to recap. But first, a very important question. Super Bowl party this weekend?
It's what happens when you get older. We went to one of my daughter's elementary school friends' houses so the kids could play. So
Perfect,
not so much the all my high school friends or coaching buddies, anything like that. It was something to keep the kids occupied so we could watch most of the game last night.
Was the food at least good? That's the
very
best
good
question. Yeah,
very good. Yep, fajitas, queso. Yep, silver-pea cheesecake. There's some good stuff.
All right, I haven't eaten supper yet, so if you hear the stomach growling,
well,
I'm thinking
sorry,
about
I
all
gave
of
you
that
some
stuff.
ideas there.
Yeah, perfect. All right, have that and that and that and that. Let's dive right into what's happened recently. And you guys have been, on a rough swing and have lost the last four. When you're just trying to keep your guys' head up, motivation, anything like that, has there still been a positive outlook from the team, or have you kind of had to help that along? What's that atmosphere been like in the locker room?
I think the locker room's been good. A lot of these guys are really great friends, so there hasn't been a lot of kind of the maybe division that might happen. We're just a few plays here and there away. Even the other night at Paladuro, losing by 4 and didn't finish at the rim very well, and so we had lots of things to point to, and had our chances with Coronado the other night as well, and kind of some of the same issues, but just kind of knowing where we still are and where we can grow, for these juniors coming back next year and these seniors to go out tomorrow night on hopefully the right kind of note.
Mm-hmm. I know it wasn't your guys' decision to do this, but we have start the program with Coach Scott and then with you. Was that a good thing? Was going to be like any fighting in the hallway?
No,
like
not
that?
at all. Not at all. No, not at all.
You guys do lose 76-64 this last game against Coronado. A rivalry that means so much, and you have been on this rivalry at every phase of it. When you see environments like you had last night, even though you guys are on the losing, how fun is it to be a part of that, knowing that every time you two guys get together with Coronado and Monterey, it's going to be crazy?
Well, it always adds a little extra, and it brings some fun. You always maybe not that you want to say you prepare more, but your focus is maybe a little heightened, and it's always, whether we're both good, both bad, one and the other, it's always a hard place to play when we go over there. And I think they'd maybe say the same thing about coming to us, that it's always, a lot of times we split with each other and we win at home. We both do, and that it's hard to travel even just a few blocks down the road and play somebody like that, just from the familiarity, from these guys playing against each other from when they were little to freshmen and JV possibly, or maybe a couple years on varsity, and being able to do that job and get the job done on the road over there is tough, and in the rivalry game is always tough too.
And a lot of these guys, are multi-sport athletes. And as I was talking about with Coach Scott, and he kind of brought this to my attention. I hadn't thought about it. It was like, hey, this game means a lot to us because they got us in football too. So now we're carrying that over to this sport. Is that something you hear from like your guys' locker room too, as far as the sport to sport, even though it's basketball now, but these guys have faced each other in other stuff too?
Yeah, it wasn't quite so much. Last year was the first year, and I think we counted like 16 or so, maybe something like that we had swept Coronado. That there was a few years with Jared in there that they'd swept us, a little handily sometimes with him, and then there were a lot of years that were split. But it had been a long time since we had won both of those up until last year when we were able to do it. So that was kind of what we talked about more, is kind of setting that tone of this script's going to flip a little bit, and we didn't quite get it done, but I think we're on the right track to maybe making that happen a little more down the road.
And I ask you just one more kind of rivalry question, because it is fun and it's special and hard to find a rivalry like your guys', where you guys have played a bunch and there hasn't been like shifting of levels, and you guys have been doing it in district. When you look at area rivalries, where do you think that Monterey and Coronado stack up?
Well, I definitely think it's one that, everybody knows. If you mention, some other schools, you think of their rival pretty naturally, Permian and Legacy now, stuff like that, where you just kind of, you can't think of one without the other. And I think, Monterey and Coronado fits into that bill, where if you say one, you think of the other, and a lot of people will their first memory is going to go to a game between the two somewhere where something happened or some big win. Somebody had a great game, and that's maybe where a lot of people in town's mind goes before playoff success or things like that. They go to when we played each other, what happened.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'll add one more. When you look at like your playing days, what do you remember about being on the court with it?
I remember knowing those guys very well, and I think of it as the on the old NCAA football when you could play the rivalry games and they had all the names, and there was the one that was just good old fashioned hate.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that there where we might be friends at 7:29. And we're not going to be friends again until 9:15. But in that time in between, I cannot stand you at all. And the feeling was mutual both ways. I think that makes it more special too. That it was kind of that switch got flipped of I don't really like you for the next hour and a half to 2 hours, and I want to beat your brains in and play the game that way. And it made for lots of really good games that way.
You're talking to the right audience when you're bringing up the college football game. They got you on the new one?
Not yet.
Not yet?
No, I don't get the TV much with kids now. we watch Bluey and kids movies. I don't get to pick much these days.
So you just got to wait till they grow up, and then
that's true.
Then you'll start like busting out College Football 14. You're like,
yes.
These were the days of my youth. Welcome. I'm going to teach you.
Yes, GoldenEye. I found that one on the Xbox Classic Store. It's about the only thing I've managed to play 5 minutes in the last couple months.
Well, I'm looking forward to down the line where I assume it's going to be competitive and not just teaching them GoldenEye, but beating them in GoldenEye too.
We're teaching my kids card games right now, and my daughter's beat me once, and she lets me know about it because I win the rest of them, and there is no mercy in our house. There's competitive only.
That's a fun house. That also means stuff can get broken. I was raised in one of those too, so I get it.
Yep.
It is the Plainsmen Fan Zone. We'll keep going here on 100.7 The Score. We will take a look back one more time at the game and get actually into the game against Coronado before we turn the page and look at the season finale and what lies ahead here for Monterey basketball. All of that next on 100.7 The Score.
Bringing you the latest news from Monterey Athletics. This is the Plainsmen Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
It is the Plainsmen Fan Zone here on 100.7 The Score, part of the high school fan zone. Clint Scott in for Randy Rosetta, who's on the road covering playoff basketball. It is that time, playoff opener today on the girls' side. And you can stay tuned with all of the high school fan zone destinations and rounds and opponents, all of that on TSportsNetwork.com. Clint Scott with head coach Josh Davis. And Coach, let's go into this game. We talked about just the rivalry as a whole this last time out. Fall to Coronado. Take me just through the game of how everything went down.
It was kind of one of those that it early it went a little bit like expected. We talked before because their loss to Tascosa the other day had eliminated them from the playoffs. But going into that game, we still had a chance. If we had beaten them and win tomorrow night and got a little help, we could have been still in the playoff picture there. So we talked about how dangerous it is when teams kind of play with nothing to lose. That kind of one of two things generally happens. Maybe they lay down a little bit and we're done, or they go nuts and what's there to lose. And that was really the way Coronado played. They were in full attack mode. They executed well, and it was very back and forth. 1 point game after the first, 3 going into halftime, and 5 going into the fourth. It was very back and forth, and then a few more made shots for them there. They got us by 8 there in the fourth quarter and separated. But it was really wasn't unexpected. We talked about that and gone through it, and the way this game goes, it came down to a few shots that went in and didn't go in, and all of a sudden you look up and the scoreboard's not in your favor and you're running out of time, and it was a tough spot to be in, but they played very, very well, and hats off to them for playing under kind of that environment of what do we got to lose and still being able to come out and execute and get their job done.
I think it adds in just to another example for the district you guys play in. And I know I'm biased because I've covered this district for a long time, but from sport to sport, pick one at any given time. I think you guys might have the most competitive district. And then, oh, by the way, it just got a lot tougher. Now you're looking and there's 9 teams in there, and it is tough top to bottom. What do you think about the district as a whole And when you see like, oh man, this is 9 and who all is going to be joining and who all is already there, what did you think of the realignment kind of card that you guys got drawn?
Well, me and a lot of the coaches in the district are good friends, and me and Coach Pillion especially, and so we were texting a bunch leading up to realignment of, hey, I'm pretty sure we're going back to the big one from because we'd been in it before, and he and I and a few guys in Amarillo were kind of the only ones that were around when that was the district. We actually used to be 10 teams. Randall was 5A, and we had 10. At that time, but we were, what date did we start district and trying to get the schedule at least aligned a little bit in what we're doing. But it's grueling. There's a lot of, I was a little jealous looking at that Abilene Wichita Falls district where, we started district December 3rd. They didn't start till January 11th or 12th, something like that. And it's just hard because you're such a different team. Even in that month, we played 2 tournaments and a bunch of other district games, and so you've grown a lot. And us winning that first one with Caprock, our guys, we'd only had a couple practices, but they still just, they were a little disappointed in how they played. And I said, you guys, y'all don't understand how big that is though, because winning these now when people are still trying to gel and understand the way the game works and maybe moving JV to varsity, that they count double on that record, and winning one when maybe it was an ugly win is so helpful in February when you really need one that you don't look back and go, man, I wish we could have played that one again. We're so much better now. And so that was a big one to start off for us this year on the right foot in that schedule.
I would think on one hand, when you're looking at that kind of the challenges that come with a bigger district and a good bigger district, obviously there's things that from a coach's perspective will make you want to pull your hair out, but also as a competitor's kind of standpoint, is there a sense of pride or anything like that you guys do play in such a tough district?
Well, I think it's, the last time we were in this one, there was a year where us and PD were 2 of the 4 teams in the regional tournament. That it was 2 teams. It was Mansfield Timberview and Justin Northwest from the same district in the Metroplex, and us and Paladuro. So there was a real sense of pride of, we're the best out this way, and we're going to go play the best, out from you guys. And I think there's a chance that might happen again this year where we might have, 3 of the 4 teams in the regional semifinals are from our district, especially now with the split and the big school, small school. El Paso Chapin's out there, and they'll be big school, and they're very, very good. But, it's one of those, the playoffs are a weird deal where somebody might beat them, and I think there's a very reasonable chance that the 4 teams playing to go to the regional finals are from our district.
We will keep talking about that next, and also take a look at a senior night for the Plainsmen, a special night for Monterey coming up. All that more next on 100.7 The Score.
Bringing you the latest news from Monterey Athletics. This is the Plainsmen Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
It is the Plainsmen Fan Zone here on 100.7 The Score. Clint Scott sitting down with head coach Josh Davis for boys basketball for Monterey. And, Coach, I just want to continue on with one more question from the conversation we just had with the district. And you talked about, hey, whoever comes out of this district, of course we know the playoff seeding now, but from year to year, they can do a lot of damage regardless of who ends up being there when you look at kind of the 5-6 team window and how things shuffle out. Is that how you feel from a year-to-year basis, or does it, depend on the season?
I think so many teams in our district, so many head coaches and staffs do a great job where, the freshmen and the JV look exactly like the varsity with what they run and how they, with the freshmen, the size may be a little different. But, there's just such, there's such great programs where it's easy to move guys up and reload as opposed to, start over here and try. And so, and so that it keeps some of the top teams at the top, but it also keeps the quote bottom teams always dangerous as well, because they're getting good coaching, they're getting better, they're ready for their turn, and so there's never a night where you can go into any district game this year, next year, down the road and think, well, okay, this will be an easy one. We're going to coast through this one. Or maybe the other side of, man, we're going to get smacked tonight. Everybody does such a great job, and everybody always feels like they have a chance with each other, just knowing what they're bringing to the table.
The table tomorrow is going to be senior night for you guys. We'll host Plainview to close out the year. When you look at the seniors that you have this year, What stands out about this group?
This group has done a great job. They have done everything I've asked without complaining. And they've had plenty of chances. There were some guys last year that probably didn't get the playing time that maybe they deserved, with some seniors ahead of them. But they just kept working hard, and then have done a great job this year when it's been their turn. And like we were talking in the break, we've got one of them's injured, and all three of them have missed a game this year, at least a game, being sick. Around Christmas or right afterwards. So, that's tough for them to lose a game at least your senior year, because you can't stop throwing up or something. But man, when we got them back from their sickness every time, or things like that at different times, that they've just put their head down and worked and wanted to get better every day. And their work ethic, I think, is what is going to help keep propelling our program in the right direction.
Obviously, it's not going to end up being the season that they wanted. But, is there any sort of specific message to the team of what they have meant, the senior class, I should say, of what they have meant to the program as next year you look to get, back in the playoffs with some of these younger guys coming back?
Well, I think that'll be a message that we'll share with the juniors that are still around right now on varsity, and the freshmen and sophomores moving up into those JV and varsity roles. That, man, these guys were, a lot of times they were the first ones there. They were the first ones in line as we're rotating drills, getting five out there to start going up and down and things. And just that work ethic is something that's always going to serve you well. Yes, in athletics, but it's one of those lessons that athletics teaches you for down the road, when the ball stops bouncing a little bit, and how that can get you ahead in life.
Let's take a schematic view of Plainview, who you will see last time. Nail-biter, 62-20 win up in Plainview. What can you guys take from that win to tomorrow night's matchup?
I hope we learned to close them a little bit better. We were up 15 in the third quarter with that one, and they got hot, which always helps. But some of our defensive alignments and communications helped them get hot a little bit, and so it's one of those things. It's hard to teach how to close when you've never really done it before, or done it consistently and over, and what that takes. And so hopefully, if we can play the right way tomorrow night and get some shots to fall, we'll be in a similar situation, and hopefully be able to extend a lead like that and not let them hang around, and close it out early and end the year for those seniors on a great note.
Is there anything you're trying to preach? You talked about it a little bit, but preach to the juniors and freshmen and sophomores of what to take out of kind of the tough parts of this season, and what to, take to come back next year stronger?
One of the most common things in our practice, we're always talking about details, and little things make the big things, and being on time, on target with your passes, your spacing, that, one big step up or down is the difference in 3 points or a turnover, and how, when we were consistently focused on those things, things tended to go our way, and when either we had some lapses mentally or physically being tired, and some of those details weren't quite as at the forefront of our minds, that either we lost leads like we did with Plainview, or we lost games because of it, and being able to really train our minds into being sharper for longer to get the results we want.
Always great to talk to you, Coach.
Appreciate you having us.
Good luck for senior night tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
This has been the Plainsmen Fan Zone, 100.7 The Score. We'll be back with more of the high school Fan Zone on Wednesday night. We'll see you then.